The wind on the Leon never slept. It hissed through broken alloys, whispered across the dunes of powdered rust, and crept beneath the seams of Elias Caron's workshop. Inside, the old human carpenter worked by the light of a single tungsten lamp, a relic older than the empire that owned him. His hands, calloused and precise, guided a chisel against a slab of real wood. The scent of it filled the air, sweet and alien in a world that had long forgotten trees. Elias paused, leaning back to study his work, a small figurine, half-finished, carved in the shape of a wolf. The creature had never existed on the Leon. He had only seen it in digital archives, one of Earth's lost predators. "You have liked Earth," he murmured to it, as if the memory of his extinct home might hear him. He did not hear the shuttle at first. The storm's low hum masked the distant roar of engines until the vibration trembled through the floor. His tools rattled. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. Elias frowned, wiping his hands on his apron. No one visited him. No one dared. The last time a ship came unannounced, it carried a tax collector who had left without his legs. The noise grew, closer, the distinct whine of imperial thrusters. Elias's jaw tightened. He stepped outside, squinting against the glare of descending lights. A royal courier ship touched down beside his workshop, sleek and gold-trimmed, its hull reflecting the twilight in cruel perfection. Imperial, which meant trouble. The ramp hissed open, spilling mist and soldiers. Their armor gleamed like bone, faces hidden behind mirrored helms. At their center walked a tall man draped in violet, his expression carved from smug marble. Captain Drev Thon, courier to the Emperor himself. Elias knew his type, clean hands, dirtier conscience. "Elias Caron," Drev said, voice amplified through a mask. "By decree of His Sublime Majesty, Emperor Varash IX, you are to receive an imperial gift." Elias folded his arms. "I didn't ask for one." "Few do," Drev replied, smirking. He gestured, and two soldiers carried out a sealed cryopod the size of a coffin. Frost veiled its glass lid, obscuring what lay within. "His Majesty heard tales of your eccentric craftsmanship. He believes you'll appreciate this specimen." "I'm not a collector of corpses," Elias said, but the soldiers had already set the pod at his feet. The lid pulsed faintly with internal light. Beneath the frost, he could see the outline of a humanoid form, broad-shouldered, slender, strange. Something like fur glimmered against pale skin. "She was a failed experiment," Drev said with theatrical boredom. "Half wolf, half human, designed for combat, but she died during testing. The Emperor thought it amusing to gift her to a carpenter. He said, and I quote, 'Let the primitive fix what genius cannot.'" Laughter rippled among the soldiers. Elias didn't move. His eyes stayed on the body. Dead or not, there was something wrong about it, not in how it looked, but in how it made the air feel heavier. "Take it back," he said quietly. Drev stepped closer, boots crunching against dust. "You refuse a gift from the Emperor?" "I refuse garbage wrapped in cruelty." Drev's smile faded. "Be careful, human. The Emperor's generosity has limits. So does my patience." For a moment, silence balanced on the edge of violence. Then Drev exhaled sharply and signaled to his men. "Leave it," he ordered. "Let the craftsman have his toy." He turned away, his cloak catching the wind as the shuttle's engines reignited. Within moments, the soldiers were gone, swallowed by the storm. The silence that followed was absolute. Elias stared at the cryopod, its faint blue light pulsing like a heartbeat. He should have dragged it out and buried it. Should have burned it. But curiosity, that old human curse, gnawed at him. With a reluctant sigh, he rolled the pod into his workshop and sealed the door behind him. He worked the release switch, and the glass hissed open, exhaling a cloud of cold vapor. Inside lay the creature. A woman almost. Her limbs were long, her skin pale silver. Dark fur traced her forearms and shoulders like a mantle. Her ears were pointed, sharp, distinctly lupin. Her hair, matted and white, framed a face too serene for something born of war. Dead, he thought. Definitely dead. but not ruined. Her chest bore faint scars from surgical ports. Metal implants glimmered beneath her skin. Whoever made her had not built a soldier. They had built a symbol of their own arrogance. Elias ran a hand down his beard and muttered, "Monsters making monsters." He fetched a tarp, intending to cover her until he decided what to do. Yet his hand stopped midair. Something about her expression, not peaceful, exactly, but unfinished, unsettled him. She looked like she had been interrupted mid-dream. He sat beside the pod for a long time, the storm thundering outside, the lamp's light flickering over her features. "He called you a joke," he said softly. "But you didn't ask to be made. Didn't ask to die, either." He rose, found an old wooden crate, and began to prepare a proper coffin. It was crude work compared to the ships he built, but his hands moved with care. Every nail was placed as though the act itself could forgive something: the empire, the cruelty, or maybe his own complicity in existing beneath them. When it was done, he lifted her with effort and laid her inside. Her body was lighter than expected, almost fragile. As he placed her arms across her chest, he caught himself whispering an old earth prayer, half remembered, half made up. "May the stars find you kinder skies." He reached for the lid. Something shifted. He froze. Her fingers twitched, so slightly he thought it was imagination. Then her chest rose, shallow and trembling. A breath, faint, rasping, real. Elias stumbled backward, knocking over his stool. The tools clattered around him. He stared, heart hammering. The air around the body shimmered with faint static. Her lips parted. A sigh escaped, the sound of someone surfacing from a dream too deep. "Impossible," he whispered. He checked the monitors. The cryosystems were dead, power long depleted. Yet the pulse returned again, faint, but steady. He knelt beside her, pressing his ear to her chest. There it was, a rhythm, fragile as a moth's wing. Alive. Somehow alive. The carpenter sat in the dust, staring at the miracle the Emperor had called a joke. For the first time in years, he did not feel the silence of the stars pressing on him. He felt them listening. He looked up at the ceiling, as if he could see beyond the iron sky, past the cold and the cruelty, to whatever gods still dared to watch. His voice was barely a whisper. "The stars have heard my prayers." The storm howled louder outside, as though the world itself exhaled with her. Elias reached out, touched the woman's shoulder, and felt warmth spreading beneath his hand. He didn't know what she was. He didn't know why she lived. But he knew one thing: the Emperor's joke had become something far greater than cruelty. And somewhere, in the deep dark between worlds, Elias Caron began to believe that the stars were laughing with him. The body on the table was not supposed to breathe, yet it did, shallow, uncertain, and fragile. Elias stood motionless for a long time, his pulse beating in rhythm with the faint rise and fall of her chest. The storm outside had thinned to a whisper, leaving behind a silence that pressed against his eardrums. He didn't move until the lamp above began to flicker, casting the room in slow pulses of light and shadow. Each flash revealed her face, that strange fusion of beauty and feral strength. Elias forced himself to act. He rummaged through his cabinet, dragging out a med scanner, wires, a cracked datapad, anything that could read life signs. The device chirped weakly to life, its screen bleeding pale green text. Numbers scrolled upward, chaotic, uncertain, alive. "You shouldn't be breathing," he muttered, half in awe, half in fear. The readouts made no sense. Her heartbeat was erratic but steadying. Body temperature fluctuated beyond human norms, spiking and dropping in seconds. Embedded within her skin, he found faint metal signatures, not implants, but something woven into her muscle fiber. She was not simply flesh-stitched to machine. She was built to merge with it, to be both. Elias hesitated, then placed a hand over her forehead. The skin was cool, almost metallic at first, but warmed beneath his touch. He felt a faint vibration beneath it, like the hum of an engine, or a distant whisper of power waiting to wake. "If you can hear me," he said quietly, "you're safe here. You're not among monsters anymore. She didn't respond. Not yet. For hours he worked, cleaning the cryo residue from her skin, patching torn circuits along her spine, sealing wounds with a blend of human stitching and alien biogel. He moved with the precision of a man who had nothing left to lose. Every adjustment was both repair and confession, as if fixing her could redeem something he had broken long ago. When exhaustion finally clawed at him, he sat by her side, rubbing his temples. "The Emperor sent you as a joke," he murmured. "But maybe the joke's on him. Maybe the stars are tired of laughing at us." His words dissolved into the quiet hum of the generator. Then, faintly, from the table, came a whisper. "Pain." Elias froze. He looked down, heart hammering. Her lips had moved, cracked, dry, yet unmistakably alive. "You can hear me?" he asked, voice trembling between disbelief and wonder. Her eyelids fluttered. Beneath them, golden irises glowed faintly, animal and brilliant. "Pain," she said again, her voice raw, distorted by the metallic resonance of her vocal cords. "Easy," he said quickly. He found a canteen, pressed it to her lips, and helped her drink. She coughed once, then exhaled with a soft growl, not aggressive, just instinctive, like a creature learning breath again. He studied her features as life slowly returned to them. The fur along her arms bristled slightly as she shivered. She looked at him, confused, uncomprehending, as though her mind were fighting through fog. "Who?" she began. "Elias," he said. "My name is Elias. You were sent to me. I don't know why." Her pupils narrowed into slits. "Dead." "I was dead." "I thought so," he admitted. "But it seems you had other plans." Her gaze drifted to the ceiling, to the faint hum of the lamp. "I remember voices," she whispered. "Orders." "Chains." Then darkness. He felt a chill crawl up his neck. "The Emperor's work," he said softly. "You were one of his experiments. They called you a hybrid soldier. I found the records." She turned to him with slow deliberation, the muscles in her neck tightening as though memory itself hurt. "Then I am property." "Not anymore." Elias's voice hardened. "Not here." She studied him for a long moment. The air between them held a strange gravity, a silent exchange of disbelief and curiosity. Her voice, when it came again, was quiet but deliberate. "Why help me?" Elias didn't have an answer ready. He rubbed his palms together, feeling the grit and oil that had always marked his trade. "Because I build things," he said finally. "And someone broke you." The words seemed to confuse her. "Humans do not build what they fear." Elias chuckled dryly. "You don't know humans very well." Days blurred together. Her recovery was slow, but relentless. Each morning she woke with new strength, her movements sharper, her eyes clearer. Elias repaired the mechanical components of her body one at a time, not as a mechanic, but as an artist restoring a sculpture. She learned to sit, to stand, to walk. Her balance was uncanny, graceful, predatory. He observed her constantly, not as an experiment, but as something sacred. In her eyes, he saw the cruel ingenuity of the Empire, but beneath it, something older, something almost human. Sometimes, when she slept, he heard her muttering words in a language not of his kind. At first he thought it was code, but one night he recognized a phrase. "Oren." When she woke, he asked, "Oren, is that your name?" She paused, considering. "It was what they called me. The voice in my head said it was mine. I do not know if it means anything." "It does now," Elias said. "Oren." He repeated it softly, like a vow. "You're free, Oren." Freedom was a word that made her recoil. "Free," she said, as if tasting it for the first time. "And what does a weapon do with freedom?" "Whatever it chooses." That night, she sat beside the workshop window, staring at the stars. Elias joined her, placing a cup of lukewarm tea on the bench. She didn't drink, only watched the light shimmer across the glass. "You pray to them," she said suddenly. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Old habit. I used to think someone was listening." "Someone was," she murmured. "They brought me back." Elias turned to her. Her eyes reflected starlight, alive now, fierce and intelligent. "Maybe they did," he said. "Or maybe you just refused to stay dead." Her expression was unreadable, but a faint smile ghosted her lips. Then the Emperor failed. Elias nodded. "For now." A sudden tremor rattled the workshop, distant but heavy. Both looked up. Through the narrow viewport, a streak of light tore across the sky, a shuttle entering atmosphere. Not a storm, not chance. Visitors. Elias's stomach turned to ice. Only one man would come, unannounced twice. "Drev," he said under his breath. Oren's ears twitched at the name. "He comes for me." "No," Elias said, standing. "He comes for me, but he won't take either of us." He moved quickly, shutting down lights, activating jammers, concealing her beneath a false panel in the floor. She obeyed without question, her golden eyes watching him through the slats. As the distant engines roared closer, Elias felt the weight of choice settle on him like armor. Whatever game the Emperor had started, it would not end as a joke. He turned toward the door, hand tightening around his hammer, an old, simple thing of steel and wood. The weapon of a builder, not a killer. Yet tonight he would make it both. Outside, the wind began to howl again. The storm was returning, and with it, everything Elias had tried to escape. He glanced once more at the floor where Oren hid. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "No matter what happens." She gave the faintest nod. Then came the first knock on the door, sharp, metallic, imperial. Elias exhaled slowly and whispered, "The stars are listening." And when he opened the door, the storm screamed like laughter. The door slid open with a hiss, spilling harsh, white light into the dim workshop. Captain Drev Thon stepped inside, armored boots clanging against the metal floor. Behind him came two soldiers, their rifles angled low but ready. Elias stood near his workbench, the faint hum of machinery masking the thunder outside. His eyes flicked once to the hidden panel beneath which Oren waited, then returned to the man who had brought this trouble to his doorstep. "Elias Karan," Drev said, his tone almost amused. "I didn't expect you to last this long without company." His Majesty was curious what you'd make of his gift. "I made nothing," Elias said evenly. "Your Emperor's jokes are wasted on me." Drev wandered through the room, his fingers brushing across the carvings, the wooden tools, the relics of a human craft too stubborn to die. "Strange," he murmured. "A world of plasma and nanoforge, and you still scrape wood with iron." He turned sharply. "Tell me, where's the corpse?" Elias crossed his arms. "Buried, as any living thing deserves." The captain's smile was thin. "Buried or hidden. Our scans picked up residual power signatures, faint, but distinct. The cryopod was drained, yet something still hums in this place." Elias felt the pulse of his own heart in his throat. "Old generator. You'll hear it all night if you stand there long enough." Drev studied him for a long, quiet moment. "You're lying." Elias didn't move. He felt the weight of the hammer hanging at his side, not as comfort, but as promise. "Search the place," Drev ordered. The soldiers spread out, scanning the corners with handheld sensors. Every movement scraped Elias's nerves raw. One soldier passed dangerously close to the hidden panel, pausing as the device in his hand beeped faintly. Oren was beneath that floor, silent and still. Elias prayed she would stay that way. The soldier crouched, scanning again. Drev watched, the grin returning to his face. "You really should have learned," Drev said. "The Emperor doesn't send gifts without watching the reaction. You think you're forgotten, Carpenter?" The moment you opened that pod, every circuit in her body spoke to ours. Elias's pulse spiked. He lunged before he thought. The hammer swung upward, connecting with the soldier's visor in a burst of shattered glass and bone. The man dropped without a sound. Drev drew his pistol, but Elias was already moving. He hurled the hammer across the room. It struck Drev's arm, sending the weapon spinning. The second soldier fired. The shot tore through Elias's shoulder, spinning him into the wall. Pain flared white-hot, but he used it. He grabbed the fallen soldier's rifle and pulled the trigger. The bolt hit center mass and the second guard fell. Drev was already reaching for his pistol again when the floor beneath them split open. Orin surged upward in a blur of silver and motion, her claws flashing like blades. She struck Drev, sending him sprawling into the workbench. Tools and sparks rained down around them. Her growl filled the workshop, a sound that was neither human nor machine but something born of both. Elias stared, half in awe, half in terror. She moved with impossible speed, pinning Drev by the throat. He gasped, choking out a laugh. So the beast lives after all. His Majesty will be pleased to know his experiment survived. Orin's grip tightened. His Majesty will hear nothing. Elias stepped forward, clutching his shoulder. Orin, wait. She didn't look at him. Her eyes glowed molten gold, her voice trembling with fury. He made me. He killed me. And killing him won't undo that, Elias said, his tone low, urgent. We need to survive first. Drev coughed, blood trailing from the corner of his mouth. You can't run. The Emperor already knows. He sent me to confirm his suspicion that humanity's sympathy still infects its strays. He'll burn this world to ash to prove a point. Orin's expression faltered for the briefest moment. Then she lifted him effortlessly and slammed him into the table. Then we'll burn him first. Elias moved closer, placing a hand on her arm. Enough. Her chest rose and fell in ragged rhythm. For a heartbeat, Elias thought she might ignore him. Then her claws retracted, and she released Drev, who collapsed to the floor in a heap. He was still breathing barely. Elias knelt beside him, voice steady. You said the Emperor knows. How long before he comes? Drev's laughter was a rasp of blood and defiance. He's already on his way. Orin's gaze darkened. Then we have little time. Elias pressed a hand against his wound, feeling the warmth of his own blood seeping through. There's a ship outside yours? Drev's head lolled weakly. You won't outrun him. Watch me. Orin stepped past them, her movements efficient, controlled. She retrieved the captain's access card and tossed it to Elias.
He's right, she said.
The Emperor won't stop. He'll hunt us through every system. Then we don't run to hide, Elias replied. We run to fight. Her eyes met his, not human, not alien, but something resolute. You would fight an empire? I've been fighting one my whole life, he said. I just didn't have a reason to win before. Outside, lightning cracked across the horizon. The storm had reached its crescendo, scattering sand and ash through the air like smoke from a dying fire. They moved quickly, dragging Drev's limp body toward the ship. Elias hesitated at the threshold. Despite everything, he looked down at the fallen officer. Tell your Emperor, he said softly, that the stars have a better sense of humor than he does. They left him there, unconscious, half buried in the dust as the shuttle's engines roared to life. Inside the cockpit, Orin's fingers glided across the controls with instinctive precision. She interfaced with the ship's systems as though born to it, her eyes flickering with brief streams of data. Elias strapped himself in, watching the horizon shrink beneath them. The storm's glow faded into the endless dark of space. Only when the planet fell behind did either of them speak. Orin stared ahead at the stars, her reflection sharp against the viewport. He'll follow, she said quietly. He'll never stop. Elias leaned back, grimacing as he wrapped his wound. Then we make him chase something worth finding. She glanced at him. And what is that? The truth, Elias said. About what he did to you. About what he's done to all of us. For a moment, the only sound was the steady thrum of the ship's engines. Then Orin smiled, faint, dangerous, beautiful. Then we give him a story the stars will remember. Elias returned the smile, weary but determined. You were his joke, he said. Let's make you his reckoning. Outside, the void stretched infinite and silent, but for the first time in years, Elias felt it watching, not as a cold witness, but as an ally. The stars, it seemed, were still listening. The ship drifted through the void, a dark silhouette against the pale shimmer of a twin-star system. The engines whispered rather than roared, a hunted quiet. Elias sat in the cockpit beside Orin, watching the distant light bend across the glass. His shoulder ached, the wound bound with scraps of cloth and nanogel, but pain had become background noise. What mattered was the data now flashing across his screen, encrypted Imperial logs, the ones Drev's ship had carried. Every line was proof of what the Emperor had done: the experiments, the hybrid soldiers, the discarded lives. Every page was a record of cruelty masked as progress. Orin's reflection watched him read. "You could sell that to any Dominion council," she said. "They'd pay in systems." Elias shook his head. "Not for sale. This isn't about profit. It's about truth." She studied him for a long moment. "Humans and truth," she murmured. "A fragile faith." He smiled faintly. "Maybe. But it's the only one we have left." For the first time since the Leon, she seemed uncertain. The sharpness in her voice softened. "And if truth kills us both, then we die honest." The silence between them was not cold. It was weighted with understanding. Beyond the viewport, the stars flickered like distant eyes, waiting for their next move. When the transmission alarm blared, both turned sharply. A holographic distortion shimmered into being, not a message but a projection. The Emperor himself materialized, tall and spectral, his gold robes fracturing the air. His face was beautiful in the way predators were, perfect, predatory, and indifferent. "Elias Caron," he said with a voice that filled the cabin, deep and unhurried. "And the runaway toy. You have caused me considerable inconvenience." Orin's hands clenched around the console. "You called me a toy once. You built me to kill and die for your amusement." Varash smiled thinly. "And yet here you are, alive. A testament to my genius." His gaze shifted to Elias. "You disappoint me, human. I gave you a gift and you turned it into rebellion. Do you know how tedious rebellion is to immortals?" Elias leaned forward. "Maybe not tedious enough. You've built gods out of corpses. Someone needs to remind you what it costs." "Ah," Varash said. "The craftsman believes he can carve morality from decay. How noble." His tone darkened. "You cannot save her, nor yourself. My fleet will arrive within the hour. You have nowhere left to run." The projection flickered, then vanished. Silence rushed back into the ship. Orin's jaw tightened. "He's right. The warp beacon's tracking us. They'll be here soon." Elias exhaled slowly. "Then we end this before they do." She turned to him, her eyes glowing in the dim light. "End it how?" "By giving the stars something to remember." He pointed to the ship's core schematic. The reactor pulsed like a living heart. "We overload it. The blast will take the Emperor's fleet with it. But the data—" Orin nodded. "I can transmit it before detonation. The network will scatter the signal across 10,000 channels." He met her gaze. "You'll need to leave before the core collapses." Her silence was answer enough. The hours that followed passed like heartbeats. They worked side by side. No words wasted. Elias rewired conduits, sealing circuits, with trembling fingers. Orin interfaced directly with the ship's neural grid, her voice blending with the hum of the system. She moved like something born for this, efficient, graceful, determined. When everything was ready, she stood beside him in the narrow corridor that led to the escape pod. "You should go," he said. "I was never meant to run," she replied. Elias's throat tightened. "You were never meant to live, either. And yet you did. That's reason enough." Her eyes searched his face, and for the first time, he saw something purely human flicker there, not programming, not design, but feeling. "You made me more than I was," she said softly. "You built what they tried to destroy." He reached out, brushed a hand against her cheek. "You made yourself. I just handed you the tools." The ship shuddered. Sensors flared red. Through the viewport, the Emperor's fleet had arrived, a vast armada of silver and gold, filling the void with blinding light. Orin watched them with calm fury. "Time to pray," she whispered. Elias nodded, his hands steady on the console. "Let's make sure someone's listening." The first blast struck, a beam of searing energy that grazed their hull, sending alarms screaming. But the reactor was already climbing beyond control, power surging past containment. The floor trembled beneath them, lights strobing. Orin initiated the transmission, her voice merging with static as she sent the files across the stars. To anyone who can hear, she said, her tone steady despite the chaos, the Emperor of the Orion Dominion is no god. He builds life to break it. Remember our names, Elias Caron.
Orin.
Remember that we lived. She turned toward him. The ship's console glowed brighter, molten cracks spreading through the deck. It's done, she said. Elias met her gaze. Then stay behind me. She shook her head. I go where the builder goes. The words silenced his protest. Together they stood before the viewport, the twin stars reflected in their eyes. Outside, the Emperor's fleet moved to close in, hundreds of ships, each a monument to arrogance. The overload reached its limit. Warning klaxons dissolved into a single tone, a pure, rising hum that filled the ship like a heartbeat ready to burst. Elias exhaled, feeling the calm before annihilation. The stars have heard my prayers, he said quietly. Orin took his hand, her grip firm, unafraid. Then let them answer. The light engulfed everything, brilliant, consuming, absolute. When the explosion came, it was not a sound but a silence, so vast it seemed to swallow the universe. The fleet vanished in that brilliance, erased in the same instant that Elias and Orin did. Centuries later, in the ruins of the Emperor's once mighty dominion, explorers found fragments of a forgotten battle. Among the debris floated a single piece of wood, impossibly preserved, carved into the shape of a wolf woman standing beside a man with a hammer in his hand. No one knew their names, but the archivists recorded the legend that accompanied the find. It said the stars had once listened to a human's prayer and answered it with fire. And somewhere in the quiet dark, where memory and light intertwine, the stars still whispered the names Elias Caron and Orin, Builder and Reborn, the ones who taught the galaxy that even in the empire of gods, humanity still dared to build hope.